Your cybersecurity solution is here. Introducing Pentester's Advanced Cybersecurity Suite. Ready for peace of mind? Try it for free. No credit card required. Pentester.com.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anthony Ruggiano Jr. I want to welcome everybody to Reform Gangsters. And if you like my content, please hit the subscribe button. And don't forget to check out my Patreon. I got a lot of good videos on there. I also got the video on there of Vito the barber, who was John Gotti's barber for 5 years and actually was with him almost every day for 5 years, either blowing out his hair or cutting his hair. It's a real good video, so check it out. So, I'm going to talk about something today. It encompasses like everything. Like it encompasses my time in the street, drugs, a lifestyle, and then how I dealt with the aftermath of all that when I got clean in recovery. And what sparked this memory or sparked me to tell the story was I read in the newspaper that Chapman, the guy that shot John Lennon, just got denied parole for the 14th time. They're never going to let him out. It's crazy, because they let out people that kill cops, but they're not going to let him out because he shot Lennon. And he got denied parole for the 14th time. And on December 8th, John Lennon will be dead 45 years. And, it's funny because in our lives, we always remember where we were when certain things happened. Like I remember where I was when Kennedy got killed. I was in the 4th grade and a teacher came into the classroom and took my teacher out of the classroom. And then my teacher came back in the classroom and she was crying. And then they took us all to the auditorium because back then that's what they used to do. All our mothers were home back then. Nobody's mother worked like today. And they took us all to the auditorium and they called up our houses and our mothers came and picked us up from the school. I remember when Elvis Presley got killed. I was driving in a car with my friend Larry on Pickett Avenue, and it came on the radio that Elvis was taken to the hospital, and then a couple of minutes later, it came on that Elvis was dead, and then every radio station was playing Elvis songs. It was kind of spooky. Now let's get back to John Lennon. So John Lennon died December 8, 1980. I got out of prison October of 1980. So I was home 2 months when John Lennon got assassinated. So that week, of course, when I got home, I went right back into the mob, committing crimes and everything. That week I did a score and I made a couple of $1,000s. I had just come home. I was only home 2 months. I made a score and I had a couple of $1,000. And of course I went out. Which I did, because that's what we did. We had wives. We left our wives home and we went out. And I went to the city. Of course, I went to Manhattan. Well, first I started out in my neighborhood, and then I went to Manhattan. I went to the Ritz. Of course, that's where I hung out at the time, in the Ritz. And, doing lines, drinking, partying, and everything. And then from the Ritz, I went to a private club uptown. And I don't remember who I was with. I think I went there by myself, but I met a couple of people there that I knew. And while I was there, I met 2 girls from Brazil. 2 from Brazil. Now, you got to understand, I'm 26 years old. I got a pocket full of money. I'm mobbed up. Everybody, in the joint knows I'm Fat Andy's son. I'm getting treated like really good. The girls are impressed. I'm buying them drinks. 2 hot-looking girls, both from Brazil. They were in Manhattan for a while, and we start talking and bullshitting. And anyway, I wind up taking both of them. So back then, there was a Hilton by Kennedy Airport. Now it's still there, but it's a different name now. There was a Hilton. It just had opened up right by Kennedy Airport. So I took a cab with these two Brazilian broads, and I took the cab and I went to the Hilton by Kennedy Airport because I wanted to be near where I lived. I lived in Ozone Park. Now, this is the mob. Here I am. I got a wife home. I just got married. I only got married in 77. My poor wife waited for me. 2.5 years I was in prison. She never did anything. She came to visit me regularly. And how I was raised was that mob guys had wives and girlfriends, or girls in general. So here I am. My wife's home. I'm out now with these two Brazilian broads, right? I go to the Hilton, and we're drinking. I got a bottle of scotch and whatever. We're drinking and we're doing what we're doing. You know what I mean? And now I need more cocaine, of course. So I call up Tito the barber. Now, for those of you who don't know who Tito the barber is, Tito the barber was the person that killed Jimmy Burke's son, Frankie. He was a very, very dear friend of mine. But at this time, he had the barbershop father and son, and he was Dominic Cataldo's brother-in-law. Dominic Cataldo was a soldier in the Colombo family who actually later on set Tito up to be killed. And they were both dealing cocaine. They had a cocaine business on the down low because mob guys weren't supposed to sell drugs, which was a bunch of bullshit. So anyway, Tito was dealing coke for Dominic, his brother-in-law. So I called Tito up, and I'm with these two girls from Brazil. I called Tito up, and like I said, I did a score, so I had a nice piece of change on me. He comes to the hotel with an ounce of coke. Now, here I am with these two Brazilian girls. He comes with an ounce of coke. He sees me there with these two Brazilian. He's laughing. He's going, "You're crazy. You just got out of jail." And, excuse me, we did a few lines together, him and I. He didn't stay, and he left. So, of course, later on, we all know what happened to Tito. He killed Frankie Burke. He killed Jimmy Burke's son, and then his brother-in-law set him up. He came back to New York, and he was murdered himself, actually in his own barber shop, father and son, on 101st Avenue. And, we were really, really good friends, him and I, to the point where even though I was friends with Jimmy Burke and his family, I was very, very good friends with his daughter, Kathy, like really good friends. His son, Frankie, I really didn't care about too much. He was kind of a bully. He never bullied me, but he was kind of a bully. He was like not a good drinker. He would drink and start a lot of trouble. That's why eventually he got killed. And nobody went to Tito's funeral, but I went. I went with Alice and my wife, and he had a closed casket. So getting back to the Hilton. So now I'm in the Hilton. I'm with these two girls from Brazil. We're blowing coke, we're drinking, we're partying, doing what you do, you know what I mean? I'll leave that to your imagination. And I'm laying on the bed with the TV on, and I got one Brazilian girl on this side and one Brazilian girl on that side, and I got the TV on, and all of a sudden it comes on the TV, boom, John Lennon just got shot. So I get up. Right, because now I love the Beatles. I'm a big Beatle. When I'm a little kid, I'm waiting all week for the Beatles to come on at Sullivan, and the next day I became a Beatle. Like I made my father take me. I got Beatle boots. I got a Beatle haircut. I wore like black suit with a tie, to go to school. I was infatuated with the Beatles, like the whole country was, And now I jump up, and it's on the TV that John Lennon had just got killed. And here I am with these two girls from Brazil, doing what I'm doing. On the TV, John Lennon just got murdered. I felt kind of bad for him. They didn't know what the fuck was going on. The two girls from Brazil. I mean, they knew who John Lennon was, of course. And I was in that room for like a couple of days, and that's where the addiction comes in. Like I didn't really cross over that line yet into active addiction, but I was on the way. Like the 80s, when I got out of jail in 80. Not too long after that is when I really got caught up in the whole thing, especially once I started freebasing, which was not long after that night or them nights that I started. Then things got crazy and really bad. But this was like the beginning of it, the beginning of the active addiction, because now I'm in this hotel room for a couple of days with these two Brazilian girls, blowing coke, drinking. I got my wife home. She don't know where the fuck I am. You know what I mean? So Leonard gets killed. It's on the TV. I don't know, maybe a day later or something. I'm in the room, and I was done. and I gave them a couple of dollars and to take cabs wherever they had to go, and I left. And I never saw them again. I never heard from them again. I never saw them again. I don't even know what happened to them again. They're probably both grandmothers by now, if they're still alive. I don't know whatever happened to them. I never saw them. We never exchanged numbers. Of course, we had no cell phones, so I couldn't give them a number to reach me because it was where I lived. So, and I didn't take their numbers because they lived in Brazil. They were probably going to go back to Brazil at some point, so I never saw them again. And that's where I was the night John Lennon died, in the Hilton Hotel by Kennedy Airport, with two girls from Brazil with an ounce of coke that Tito the barber delivered to me, who killed Frankie Burke, Jimmy Burke's son, who got murdered himself later on. Now, when I get clean, this is the stuff you have to deal with, the guilt, the shame. You know what I mean? So every time John Lennon comes up and his death comes up and his shooting comes up, this night in my brain comes up, you know what I mean? And normal people and people and active members of normal people of society don't live that way. You know, like I'm sure a lot of people my age that know where they were when John Lennon died weren't in the position I was in. You know what I mean? I think it was kind of, rare or whatever that not a lot of people were in the position I was in, So when I got clean, that was part of my step work, I guess you could say, part of my guilt and shame and letting go and not repeating the same mistakes twice, Alice, and when you do step work, there's a fourth step and a fifth step, and then there's an eighth step and a ninth step where you make amends, and Alice was like, she was probably the first person on the list. And I remember when it came time for me to do that, I took her to this place on Jamaica Avenue, and we made an amends, and thank God, because we became good friends after that again. So that's my little story about where I was when John Lennon died. It ties into the mob, it ties into my addiction, it ties into the whole lifestyle of what was going on back then in the 70s and the 80s with a lot of us. I mean, not only me. I mean, I had the name, but believe me, a lot of people were playing the game. The difference between me and a lot of people out there that were blowing coke was I was out in the open, which was wrong, was, I guess, shame on me. And a lot of people were in the closet blowing as much coke as I was, but I had the name and they played the game. But in the long run, I'm clean today. I'm coming up on 37 years. It's funny because he's dead 45 years. I'm going to be clean 37 years. And like I said, every time it's this time of the year and they start talking about John Lennon and his assassination, that's what comes to mind, that whole episode of where I was and what I did and how I dealt with it. So that's my little John Lennon story. Martin Luther King assassination. Honestly, I think I was home when that happened. I remember I was home. Yeah, I was home because it came on the TV, and then it came on, about all the civil rights stuff and all that. I was home when that happened. I was in school when Kennedy got killed. Like I said, I was in the car driving up Pickett Avenue when Elvis died. I was home on my couch watching TV when Paul Castellano was killed. The day of Carlo Gambino's funeral. That's a funny little story. So Carlo Gambino died. I didn't go to the funeral parlor of my father, but he was going to take me to the burial, to the church that morning of the funeral when they were going to, to the church and into the cemetery. I was going to go with him, and I had a warrant on me. For, believe it or not, moving traffic violations or some stupid shit. I had a warrant on me, and the morning, early in the morning, when we were getting ready to go to the funeral, the phone rang, and it was the cops, because that's what they used to do. That's how, and they told me that I had a warrant on me, and if I would turn myself in. And I said, now, right now? And they said, yeah. They actually came and picked me up on the corner of my house on 88th and Atlantic Avenue. they parked on Atlantic Avenue, and I got in the car with them, and they took me. And when I was driving, they actually asked me, "Is your father going to the funeral today?" And I go, "Yeah." I was supposed to go with him too, but now I'm not because she's had to come here today and lock me up for this bullshit. And they took me to, central booking, and, I got out the next day with some bullshit, and then I wound up paying a fine. So that's how I missed Carlo Gambino's funeral. So yeah, those are, little moments that I remembered of things that happened where I was when people died and when funerals happened and weddings and all that nonsense. I don't remember where I was when Robert F. Kennedy got assassinated. I think I might have been in school. I don't remember. I remember, seeing it on TV, when he got assassinated in the kitchen of that hotel. But I don't remember. He wasn't like a big figure in my life, like his brother or Martin Luther King, or that was during the primaries, and he was when he was running for president. And I know one thing: my father was thrilled. My father hated the Kennedys with a passion. I think every mob guy hated the Kennedys with a passion. My old man used to tell me all the time, the reason why him and his brother got killed is because they double-crossed everybody that helped them. Which, if you look at history, I guess they did. You know what I mean? Like the Teamsters helped them and they put Hoffer in jail, and, all that, on and on and on and on. So, but I don't remember where I was when Robert Kennedy. I remember where I was when his nephew, John Jr., died in the plane crash. I was in Schuylkill prison, and I was watching TV with a couple of other friends of mine, and it came on the TV that his plane was missing. I remember when that happened, when he crashed his plane and killed his wife and his sister-in-law with him because he didn't know what the hell he was doing. I remember where I was when that happened. I was in prison. Yeah.
How about the Apollo 11 moon landing?
Oh, I was home. I saw that. I wasn't. I don't. I remember hearing about it, and I went home and I watched it on the news. I watched it on the news, but when they landed on the moon, I was home watching that. The whole country watched that. I'm the one that exploded with the teacher on it when the first person had civilians on it. That I actually watched live on TV, and when it exploded, because civilians were on it for the first time. That school teacher was on it, so I was interested in it, and I watched it. And when it exploded, we all thought that it was part of what was going on, and then everybody realized that it wasn't, and everybody was like in shock. Yeah, so, and I remember where I was when The Sopranos ended. That was crazy. I thought the TV broke. Yeah.
What did you think of Woodstock when it was going on?
That's a good story. So when I used to go to Florida every year with a friend of mine's family. We used to go for 2 weeks, and we went to Florida, and I came back from Florida, and the neighborhood was empty. The whole neighborhood was empty, and everybody was at Woodstock. So it had started. It was like the second day that it was on, or that night, whatever. But the whole neighborhood was empty. I remember Ozone Park, everybody that I knew was gone. Like it was empty. And so, of course, we wanted to go up there, and we attempted to get up there. And if you see all the news clippings and everything, the New York State Thruway was actually shut down. Like you couldn't get, and when we actually got caught in that whole New York State Thruway mess, and we just pulled over with all these other people, and everybody just hung out on the side of the road and partied. And I never actually got to where the concert was, but friends of mine were there actually at the show, at the concert, but I never actually got there. I got stuck on the New York State Thruway. And when you see the films of it, they show you that scene of the Thruway with all the cars, that I was in that mix of it. Watergate, I after it happened, I don't remember when it happened, where it happened that night, but I remember the next day hearing about it and watching all the hearings and everything, actually with my own man, watching all the hearings, and when he resigned, and I was, I watched the thing live when he said, "I am not a crook," and all that stuff. And I remember after that, when they had the hearings, and my father used to watch. He was like thrilled, and he would watch, and he used to go, look at them all giving each other up. And I remember clear as day when the hearings were on TV, he was in the living room watching it, and he called me in, and I sat down, and that's when he told me, he went, "You see them? That's the real mafia," he told me. That's the day, that's when he told me that saying was during the Watergate hearings when he said, "That's the real mafia." He goes, "They wrote the book on treachery, those people." And he was right. He was right.
It's fucking
Yeah.
crazy.
And that's another thing, before I came on, and I don't really like to talk politics. I mean, I'm not here to talk politics. I'm not a politician. I know there's a couple of guys out there that are into politics, which is fine, but what's going on now in New York is breaking my heart with this guy Mandani. I mean, this is terrible. It's terrible that this guy's actually going to become mayor of New York City. It's like, it blows my mind, like how the city changed. I mean, who are these people that are voting for this guy? It's crazy. This guy's going to destroy New York City. I mean, he's going to destroy it. And he's going to be the mayor. It's another thing that reverts back to Fat Andy. I mean, see, that's why all this ties into the mob. This is a perfect example of when Fat Andy, my father, told me when I was 16 years old, when I started working for him, he told me, and I remember like it was yesterday, he told me, "Don't ever feel sorry for the public, no matter what we do to them." And we did a lot to them because we pillaged and plundered New York City. I mean, the mob pillaged and plundered New York's, taking over businesses, shaking unions down. Like we did a lot of evil shit to the public. And he told me, "Don't ever feel sorry for the public because they vote for these fucking people." And this is a perfect example of what's going on today. All these years later.
You're 72, right?
I'll be 70. I'm not 72 yet.
All right.
I'll be 72 in 8 more days.
All this time on Earth, what role would you say that television and the mainstream news control the people's opinions?
Oh, big time. Big time. I mean, that's all you had, back in the day, all you had was Walter Cronkite, and, they controlled everything. That was the only source of information. Now, not so much because of the internet and, social media and this 24 hours, 24/7 news channels. So it's a different world. But in my day, they controlled everything. That's the only place you could get your news from, is from the couple of newspapers and 3 TV channels, 2, 4, and 7. Walter Cronkite, he was God back in the day. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, come on, they controlled everything. I mean, I think what controls everything today is how these kids are getting indoctrinated in these colleges. That's why this guy Mandani is going to win, because of that generation of young people that think, they want everything. And it's funny because I heard a guy say the other day, which I agree 100%. The people that want everything for free, the people that don't want Mandani are the ones that are going to have to pay for the people that want everything for free. That's getting screwed. Like, you're going to have to pay. My son's going to have to pay. My son who works hard, like my son who breaks his back in Kennedy Airport in a warehouse, is going to have to pay for these people now to ride the bus for free. I mean, it's not right. It's just not right. Hopefully, I just heard another thing too. I just heard another thing on the news that Bible sales are up 36%, which is a big jump. And Bible sales are up 36%. So there's a war being waged right now out there. You know what I mean? There's a war being waged right now out there between what's going on with all these generations. So, Mandani's going to become the mayor, but then on the other hand, Bible sales are up 36%. So there's a struggle going on.